Hi friends, this is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolfpack come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A safe space where being yourself is the ultimate goal. Each week we will bring you new episodes sharing our opinions on a ton of different topics in hopes we can get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our opinions and experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals, no one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences, our opinions, and for entertainment purposes only. Now, with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone, welcome back to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. We hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy and I am the host of the show, and today we are on episode 120, Operation War. Just like the cults, it gets darker, y'all. So in the last episode and series in the series Operation What the Fuck, we're going to be talking about all the CIA operations and projects and thoughts around some wars. Again, as usual, of every topic that we've covered in the last 2 months, we're just scratching the surface. But this one's really good, you guys. It is full of the weirdest and wildest tactics, the documents that have been released. We're going to jump into aliens because y'all would know we love that. And just a couple other things too, guys. We're so excited. So before we get on to the show, I'm going to ask you, as always, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, if you can hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and like the video, that would be great. Make sure you're turning on those notifications and following if you're listening on Spotify or Apple as well. And don't forget, if you are on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, we are there, so please give us a follow, shoot us a message, and let us know what kind of topics and things you guys want to hear. All right, so that's it for me for now. Let's jump on to the show and talk about crazy war shit. All right, babes, it's time to get on the show, and with me today in studio is my babe Hales. Hey, girl, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
I see Cattail.
Yeah, Kat, she is a permanent fixture she is like my co-host, my
I love it so
co-co-host.
much. She's like, oh, it's
Yeah,
time. It's my time to shine. I could see
she
too.
does. I come
She feels
downstairs
like
and she like tick 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 behind me. It's pretty funny.
and the laptop too is probably nice and warm and the energy's probably flowing. So she's like, yeah,
Oh
this
yeah.
is my spot. I love
Yes.
it so much. Thank you for joining me on our final Operation
Oh,
What the Fuck,
absolutely.
talking about war. Guys, war freaks me out because I don't know a lot about it, but it's
I feel
not
like
great.
our generation has gone through wars, but they've been very different from past wars. It's not like huge mass casualty, like physical war. We've gone through quite a psychological and information war the past few years. But
Yes.
yeah, our generation hasn't been fully hit by, or like, it has, like Afghanistan, like, don't get me wrong, but like
Like
a
our part of the
direct
world, the Western
link,
world.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
we don't have that. So I'm
No,
with
and
you.
like terrorist attacks and obviously bad things, but like
Mhm.
war, it seems a very much thing of like, the early 1900s to like
It's
mid
just
to like the
stories to
70s.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's what our grandparents did. So like for the wars
Hmm.
that we obviously fight, like you said, are the technological ones, the ones
They've
against
been a
our
bit
mental
different.
health. Yeah, our food, our like
We
our
also have
resources.
like actual wars looming like
Yes,
constantly, it
all the
seems.
time.
So I
And
guess
it's
we're
like,
not like too disfamiliar with like the threat of it, but definitely
oh,
not the actual consequence
physical.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And we know some people, or we know people of, but nothing that's like it used to be part of everyday
Direct.
life. Yeah, back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to talk about a couple of things, guys. As always, as we dive into these topics, they seem to lead to other things. Um,
They all
so
kind of connect somehow or have like elements of it that are the same, and
yeah,
yeah, they
and the
reuse a
same
lot of their technology and
people
knowledge throughout. Yeah.
experiences, all that stuff. You're like, hey, wait, this guy sounds familiar. This situation sounds familiar. Hold on.
Yeah.
I've heard this before. So you guys see we're two today. So Dee's missing. It's tax season, but she did collect us some awesome notes as per usual. So we're going to read them for you about Operation Paperclip. We've talked about this one
For sure.
before, and we talked about it a little bit more in the mind, a little bit like touched on it in the mind control one too, because
I
that
feel like paperclip is a big one too.
it
Paperclip is like one of the more well known. It's also one of the like I wouldn't even know how to put it. Like the more
accepted.
in my opinion, like controversial.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Like
that's
they
fair.
all are controversial, don't get me wrong, but this one is like how dare
You did
you kind
what?
of
You did.
controversial.
You did
Yeah,
what
you
now?
did pardon
You
me.
did what?
Yeah, this one
But
they
common
all have
knowledge, I
that
guess.
element, but this one is just a little more intense, we'll say,
Let's
in
say,
my
okay,
opinion.
so let's see what these notes say. So let's crack it open. So Operation
Yep.
Paperclip, aka how the USA helped Nazi criminals from World War II evade justice to advance its own military ambitions.
Yeah, you
Oh,
heard
these
that.
words. Just the words coming out of my mouth. So, fall of 1944, the United States and its allies, like different intelligence agencies, launched a secret mission code named Operation Paperclip. The
We're
aim
reading
was,
this, by the way.
yes,
That's why we look
absolutely. These are
like
this
zombies.
is I don't want to get things wrong, and I don't trust my stony brain to
No.
say it, y'all. That's why we read it from the notes. The aim was to, and we want you to look this up. These are just things that we found on the internet.
This
Do
is
not
yeah,
come for
this
us.
is
Our
the shell of it. You
research,
get to go to the nut in the
you get the
the
nut.
meat of the
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm nuts about beans and I'm beans about nuts. Okay, so the aim
exactly.
was to find and preserve German weapons, including biological and chemical agents, but American scientific intelligence officers quickly realized the weapons themselves were not enough. Okay. The intelligence officers eventually discovered while the atomic weapons program was not as advanced as initially feared, that's kind of funny. Hitler's biochemical weapons were.
Yeah.
The hunt for
Yeah.
the scientific treasure and ultimately for the scientists themselves ignited Operation Overcast, renamed Operation Paperclip. They seem to never keep their initial names. No, they don't, Dee. They really never.
Overcast. That's pretty interesting because like they pretty much like fogged that out, didn't mention it, and like yeah, Overcast. They're
Rebrand.
very like yeah hidden about it and secretive for very good
And
reason
like
because that is
Paperclip,
fucked.
like I feel like it
Like we
almost makes it
said,
more innocent.
what does that have to do with anything? Some of these
I
names
don't know.
literally have like
I
paperclip.
think
Yeah,
it's like you
what?
wouldn't think like Nazi scientists, right? So I think
If you know
sometimes
the like the meanings
now,
behind some of these names, let us know because
yeah, please. Curious,
I don't
and
know where
maybe
paperclip is
we'll
related.
find out, maybe not.
Yeah.
They decided the United States needed to bring the Nazi scientists themselves to the U.S. They then began their mission to recruit top Nazi doctors, physicists, and chemists, including Werner von Braun, who on to design the rockets that took man to the moon. Well, pause. Since multiple ended up getting contracts with NASA, and he ended up becoming their director of NASA Marshall Space Flight Center as well. So,
So they brought doctors, physicists, and chemists from Nazi Germany, aka the people that came up with and pretty much invented and put in place all of the heinous torture methods that they implemented in Auschwitz and all the concentration camps. So they brought them to the States to use their scientific brains for further research and data and projects.
and not in
Those sound
like
like good people to be saving,
prison,
and
not in a
no, like
prison, not
they brought them
right,
over. I'm
to
assuming
like
changed their
learn,
names,
give
witness
them jobs in
protection type
NASA,
shit. Yeah,
give them
yeah.
NASA contracts. Like, cool,
When I
cool. That's
found
great
that
that you
out,
want
that
to learn.
really
But
it bummed me out. Didn't shock me because none of this stuff does anymore. But it was just one of those like I. The worst part is like you understand like why they did it because these men are obviously very intelligent. They are very advanced, way more than the states. So like you understand why they did it, but like how could they do that? How could you
100%.
save those people and
And,
treat them
and yeah, treat them nice.
as
Like if you want to capture
yeah,
them to learn from them to figure out like why did they do that to maybe
that would have
prevent
been
it or
one thing. Like
understand,
they were
that's
like
one thing.
prisoners, like
Yeah.
captive prisoners who are there
And
to
not
give
Martha Stewart,
information,
not
but
just
not
Jane
given like
Maxwell,
new
but like
lives, families
not new
brought
lives.
over. Like
Yes.
I just
Understood.
yeah, it was intense
That's
to
fucked
find
up.
that
It's
out.
fucked up. The US was not alone in this endeavor. Britain, France, and especially the
Yeah.
Soviet Union also wanted these German scientific experts. A US Soviet technological rivalry marked by the space race and Cold War would also serve as a motivation and justification for
Yeah.
Operation Paperclip's existence. So, as I was reading this stuff in War II, it's like soon as Russia does something, it's like the states is going to do it and vice versa.
It
It's like
feels
if
like
they think they're doing
everyone
something,
does.
then we got it.
As
Yeah,
soon as
everybody.
Russia's doing something or
Now
China's
they
doing
do it.
something, there's like an immediate interest and like, oh, we need to get to doing that too.
Yeah, we
Oh
better,
yeah,
or we're behind. We better
I
know so we can
would
be ahead.
still do that. Yeah,
And like sometimes I get it, but these degrees not quite like I'd be curious to know what they did as well
yeah.
with their people that they got.
Mhm.
In early 1945, Colonel Holger and Toftoy, that's a fun name, chief
That's a
of the
good one.
rocket branch in the Research and Development Division of Army Ordnance, ordered initial 1 year contracts to the rocket scientists. Oh my God. After Toftoy,
Contracts, so
just
I think
contracts.
they're being paid. It sounds like
Sounds like to me. After Toftoy agreed to take care of their families, 127 scientists accepted the offer. 127, not one or two, and not
and
just them
families.
and their families in 1945. After all the stuff that they did, they took those guys and their
This
families
isn't like
and
refugees of innocent like citizens. This
no,
is this
terrible
is
people,
people like
cancelable people,
directly to cause all the deaths
harm,
in, yeah,
all
and
of it.
harm. And well, and these are like, there was chemical too, so like mustard gas, like all of
Yep,
that, like
not good
they're
things.
not worth saving. They're not, they don't
Not worth
deserve
saving.
saving.
Nope. In September 1945, the first group of 7 rocket scientists arrived from Germany at Fort Strong in the U.S. Werner von, a bunch of names. I don't know any of these guys. I don't think any of us will know these people. They have
Braun,
names.
Newbert,
I don't. Yeah, I don't want
Popel,
to give them.
Schultz,
I
Reese.
don't really. I was like, I don't really want to name them. Like, who the fuck cares? You shouldn't get even been here.
But
Eventually,
there's
the
like
rocket.
quite a few big names.
Are they? Maybe I just don't know any of these
I
people.
don't know, but I'm
Oh,
assuming because they listed, there's at least like 10, like what, eight of them, and
eight of
so
them. Yeah,
they've got to be important if they're all listed by name. Like they're
this is true.
noteworthy, right?
I guess so. Fuck them all. Eventually, the rocket
Yeah.
scientists arrived at Fort Bliss, Texas for rocket testing at White Power Proving Grounds as War Department special employees. So they get to then be a part
They're
of
employees.
their employees and
They're being
special
paid.
war. They're being paid. Like,
They get like a special title and like a whole thing just for that.
and so like in what do you have to do to like what do you have to do in war to really be executed or you know what I mean? Like
I feel
how
like it was such like a like gross political move, and like, yeah, like nowadays that'd be like the equivalent. I don't know, like there we don't even have, I don't understand how that was a decision made, and like it's pretty well known. Like I feel like that like Operation Paperclip has like been blown open for a long time. Like how are
Mhm.
these people not then like extradited and charged or charged here for mass
Something.
like we are still, I've seen in the news within the last year or two people going after like some like 97-year-old man for being an SS officer who was involved in like everything and who committed crimes back then, and they want to go after those people and put them in jail, have them tried for their crimes, whatever the case is, but you will not go after the top scientists. Like if all of those people are not currently deceased, they should be in jail.
And how about
They
the
should
people
be in
that put them in
jail.
power?
Yeah, and
Like,
what we did, what the not we, thank Jesus, what
no.
the states and all the other countries did is, yeah, give them like a new life, a new like bring their family over and give them money to work for them. They gave them a
And
job.
nice jobs, contracts. You don't have to worry at least a year taking care of their families. Like,
I
what
don't
in the
see
fuck?
the
Ah,
I,
the understanding and the logic,
yeah,
but
I
let's
don't see
keep going here.
the merit for that, but
Maybe we'll find it.
yeah,
86 aeronautical engineers were transferred to Wright Field, which had acquired Nazi aircraft and equipment under Operation Lusty. Another
so yeah,
operation.
like what is that?
The United States Army Signal Corps employed 24 specialists, too many to sit and name. Oh, they must not be important.
27.
They also employed 7 German synthetic fuel scientists in a Fischer-Tropsch chemical plant in Louisiana, Missouri in 1946. Through
Jesus.
1990, Operation Paperclip immigrated 1,600 Nazi personnel with the intellect reparations taken by the US and the UK valued at some $10 billion.
So they went from 46 ish to 1990, so that was like a 50-year yeah, like $10 billion. Is that
And 1,600 personnel, Nazi personnel. Why, again, how do we go from that many to why do we need that many? And what are they doing here? Do
I
they all
truthfully, I knew that they brought a lot, but I didn't realize that it was like 1600 like high up Nazi person.
I don't understand
I
what
don't know.
intellectual reparations.
The
How
worst
is
part
that
is I don't
occurring?
necessarily like jive with history anyways because I feel like a lot of it isn't told properly and like they've hit a lot. So like I don't
Your
even
lens.
know what in the grand scheme of things 1600 Nazi, what is it, personnel
Personnel. Yep.
being brought over, like it just makes me like how can you bring over 1600 heinous people, like so maybe that everything was true and like there were psychotic, like the whole what we know is true, but like what if there's the stuff that we don't know, like what if some of these people
Mhm.
weren't terrible, like what
Yeah.
if they didn't do the things that
Bad
we
things.
think that they did, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like it's just so hard to gauge on what to believe
Yeah.
anymore,
Maybe
but
not
like
all
1600
1,600.
people, like
And their
Jesus.
families, right? Because it says 1,600 personnel. So
So I'd
obviously
say
their
like
families had to
that's like
come too.
2 to 3 thousand people,
And maybe
like
some are
depending how
good,
many
some are
kids and
bad, but
yeah,
maybe like, and that's where it's like it still feels icky. I
that's a
don't
commitment.
trust it. That is a commitment. While Project Paperclip scientists and engineers were said to have unwillingly joined the Nazi party, the truth proved to be far more complicated. There were numerous instances when the US military staff covered up information about the backgrounds of former Nazis
See,
who the Americans had determined would be a national security assets. To achieve scientific success, it had often been necessary to demonstrate loyalty to the regime and to develop close relationships with Adolf Hitler's inner circle. Moreover, weapon factories and labs that had conducted experiments in Nazi Germany had employed slave labor. While experts recruited through Project Paperclip often said that they had been ignorant of the breadth and criminality of the slave labor and concentration camp system, their claims were questioned by later analysts. Some infamous cases came to light in which Nazi experts who had acted as prosecutors had been granted residency in the United States or had been allowed to enter the country through paperclip related projects. That's just such oh, I didn't know. I was just doing my
see,
job.
I was gonna say I feel like some of them probably had credibility,
Probably.
and like I didn't realize what my like development or my creation or my discovery was going to contribute to. But then I'm
Absolutely.
sure a lot of them eventually found out, and it was like, oh my god, how do I stop this? And then you're just kind of stuck, and like you have
Yeah.
really nothing to do, so you have to go along with it. And then there's the crazies that are like,
Fuck
cool,
yeah.
I'm down,
Yeah.
yeah. But it
Or if
says
we
here
see
too,
like
like what?
I should say just like with the cults, right? Like is it the same thing
Yeah,
where maybe they've got not excusing anything for a fucking second. I'm just spitballing that, who knows
that
what they had on
mentality.
them. Yeah, that family, like maybe they had it, and maybe just like with the cults, we see that they're God, maybe Hitler, because there is conspiracies that Hitler thought that he was God and he was getting rid of anybody that opposed God.
Yeah,
Whether that's true or not, right? So maybe he did think that. Maybe he did convince everyone
there's
around
other
there.
circumstances we just
And
didn't know.
yeah, maybe that was like a Charles Manson on like a massive scale.
Crack.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly. You go ahead, keep
No,
going.
I was going to say I found the part where it says to achieve scientific success, it often had been necessary to demonstrate loyalty to the regime, and you had to develop a close relationship with his inner circle. So it's like typical ass kissing. Like, is that like
Tell.
when
Any
you read that, I was
differentiate?
just like, well, of course you had to. So you had to be the in of the in. So you had to. There's choices that you would have had to make and like decisions and information that you received, and you knew that you were into some shitty shit. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you
I
can't
feel
tell
like
me you
Hollywood and
didn't.
Epstein, it's like the same thing. Like anything that's like
Yeah.
sinister, like the closer you are, the more you know
Well,
too.
like that
Right?
McCain, his wife said that everyone knew what Epstein was doing, but no
100%.
one wanted to face him.
Nope.
Isn't
Nope.
that cute? No one wanted to
Yeah.
face him. Like,
Because
what the
he had
fuck?
fucking probably all of
Because
the
he had people. He
yeah,
had
all
he
the
had people on his side,
blackmail.
and yeah, he had all the information. He had like people
Mhm.
in power like that, Hitler, Epstein, like people who are in a place and position as such are there for a reason,
Yes. And they
usually.
like it
It's not
very much.
always the greatest reason, but it is a reason nonetheless.
And they like it.
All right. Well, let's see here.
What else we
Next
got?
point. One of the most notable examples was Otto Ambros, a German chemist and a convicted war criminal who had at least twice been granted visa waivers to visit the US. Good choice and waiver, right? Investigative journalism in the 1970s led to a series of hearings on Project Paperclip in the U.S. House of Representatives, which concluded that American military leaders had made morally bankrupt decisions on the grounds of national security. Duh. Partially as a result of the hearings, in 1979, the Justice Department opened the Office of Special Investigations, the OSI. Its mission was to find and bring justice to any Nazi war criminals who were living in the United States. Kind of funny that that is pretty much them going like, oh, okay, we realized what we did, but we're gonna set up this committee to like go and get them. And do you think they got them at a very alarming rate? They should know where they are. They brought them in. That should have been a quick done within a week or two. Everyone's arrested, put in jail, and then the years of trials commence. Like, it's funny that they needed a whole task force to find the people that they brought in and hid.
Did they?
Like,
Did they though,
the
or did they
fuck?
just like cover it up with another acronym?
Yeah, like how annoying is that? So while the OSI did not bring to trial any of the scientists or engineers involved in Project Paperclip, its investigations did lead to a deal under which Arthur Rudolph, who had been a National Aeronautics and Space Administration, so NASA, executive and close collaborator of Braun's, left the U.S. permanently and surrendered his American citizenship to avoid prosecution. So not only did they not find anyone that they brought into this country, they did not try them, and the one they did got away with an apology, essentially. And he surrendered his citizenship to America to go home and live fine.
So he just gets to go, and he's like, I decide. I'm leaving. I'm deciding. Goodbye.
I love how they do that. That, like, we've seen that recently, too. Like, our government found itself not guilty of something. Like, how do you put a task force together to find the people that you brought in here and can't find any of the people you brought in here? Like,
no doubt.
Explain this to me.
Can I be a cop when I get a ticket? I'd be like, actually,
I didn't deserve this.
I didn't deserve this. I didn't do this. Yeah. You're wrong. Let's get rid of the ticket. Like, is that how things work for regular people? No.
I don't understand how, you can set up, like, that's conflict of interest. Anyways. Another famous one was Hubertus Strughold. Hubertus, what a name.
What a babe.
Physiologist and medical researcher, headed the German Air Force Institute of Aviation Medicine, known for its torturous medical experiments on inmates from the Dachau concentration camp. Okay. Strughold claimed ignorance of any such activity until after the war, yet he appeared among the list of 95 doctors at an October 1942 conference discussing their findings. In the U.S., he was chief scientist of the Aerospace Medical Division at Brooks Air Force and has since been credited as father of space medicine.
Cool.
So a man who has probably had his hand in for this torturous medical experiments on the Dachau concentration camp, like prisoners, has awards and is like an upstanding citizen here.
We call him the daddy of space medicine.
Yeah, like poor space medicine.
I do not know people in that industry.
You feel like I didn't do that. I had no hand in that. No. Like, how often has that worked for anyone? Look at poor Bill Clinton. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. No, if you have done something bad enough and you just simply like, I didn't do that. Like, that is not sufficient.
No,
not sufficient. Me. No one believes you. Like, give me a break.
You wasn't me.
So
bullshit.
Ridiculous.
Oh my god.
So I guess there was another one. Walter Schreiber, a former Nazi general, also oversaw inhumane medical experiments involving bioweapons that resulted in countless deaths. Following the war, he was captured by the Soviets, but defected to the U.S. He worked for various government entities before finally settling in Texas at the Air Force School of Aviation Medicine, Jacobson writes. So he also worked with our granddaddy of medicine and space
medicine.
Fucking ridiculous. So while Schreiber would later serve as witness during the Nuremberg trials, he and von Braun, Stronghold, and the rest of their fellow Nazis brought to the U.S. would never be held accountable for their own atrocities. Operation Paperclip remained secret throughout much of the Cold War. So I'm assuming, I don't know if she has it written here, maybe we'll find out, they definitely brought this up, it just blows me away how long some of these operations go. without complete being like, I just,
1940, it
it's
was like
so sad to think
1944
that
to
they can hide
1990.
so well that kind of stuff,
Yes.
and we just don't know about it at
Yep.
all,
And then it
and
comes out.
it
It's like,
blows up like that, and it's just one of those like the fact that the government is still like a thing, in my opinion, after all that has been gone on, is like pretty crazy. Like
yep.
I'm surprised there's more countries not being like, look, fuck governments, we're gonna try this a different way. We're fuck democracy. Like we need to build a whole new something, because having anyone with power seems to just be like a breeding ground for like nonsense and shenanigans that we do not need going on behind the scenes with
Yes.
people that are like fucking creating mustard gas and fucking like gas chambers and like what the fuck, like that is
I
not
think,
who I need having
I,
power in my
no,
life,
no.
not
And I think,
directly my life, but like
not
my
directly.
life.
And I think what I would love to see is like actual true like small government democracy and actually true democracy
Yes,
in your
something
local
that is like
area.
genuine and
Yes.
not just a mask
Power hungry.
for shit,
Yeah. It
like
just seems like
spraying perfume on the fucking pile of garbage that is our
those
government.
Febreze
Like,
garbage bags, like nobody's
yeah, the
doing anybody a
fuck.
favor. But it's like they just want to keep getting power and bigger and bigger, and then they just keep serving these bigger people. Where it's just like if we could just keep to like what's best in BC and actually represent BC, and then that person actually
Yes.
represents us for Canada, and it's different, But none of that's actually happening. It's
No,
it's
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 so
not
much different.
democracy. It's a
No.
dictatorship. Like not for real, but like for real.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so we've got two more points here. So, lastly, I guess the one that sounds familiar today as well was Kurt Blome. I don't think that's Bloom. We're gonna go with Blome.
fuck that guy.
Um, who had admitted to running horrific medical experiments on healthy prisoners. Reports indicate that his area of expertise included inducing cancer in healthy individuals through viruses and infecting prisoners with diseases like typhus. The government, or the US government, sent germ warfare specialists from Camp Detrick, Maryland, to interview our buddy here. He worked for the US government for years on programs that are, I'm assuming, still classified. So he induced cancer in
Unhealthy,
people. Money
healthy.
says they consulted with this man to come up with the chemicals that are in our day to day lives that promote and induce cancer. Like this is may cause cancer, like those type of warnings. Like how much do you want to bet that this guy had a hand in that? Because like
100%.
what other than that do you need his knowledge for?
Did you read
Nothing.
did you think about this one part here? Included inducing cancer in healthy individuals through viruses.
And infecting prisoners with typhus. So infecting people on purpose and using viruses to give them cancer. What's a virus that was just out recently that the vaccine is giving people cancer?
I'm just saying, conspiracy hat on. If they knew that this stuff back then would happen, is it crazy to think? And I'm not saying whoever
That they put it
was,
in motion back then and this is the plan being put into action?
and maybe someone else did it, and then they came up with the virus. I'm not saying, I'm just, this is,
We're
how were
just here
they
to make you
playing?
think.
Well, like, how are they playing with gain of function? What made them think about viruses and infecting people? And like, they're trying
This
to use
was the start of
mRNA.
that. This is them trying to find the
100%.
people who know those technologies so then they can one day do exactly, yeah.
Learn.
Yep. And implement, right? So the legacy of Project Paperclip remains the subject of debate and investigation to this day. The moral and ethical question it raised about complicity, accountability, and necessity are difficult to answer. Did the V2 development team's awareness that their rockets were being built through the slave labor make them fully complicit in war crimes? Records indicate that Braun himself went to Buchenwald concentration camp to recruit skilled prisoners to work on his rockets. So yeah, like how in the dark are you if you're going to recruit workers to build a rocket? Like
And what did you think that camp
you
was?
know what that is. You know
It
where you're going.
smelled.
You know what you're
It,
seeing.
it
It
wasn't
is barbed wired off. There are like the photos we've
people.
seen of the state of some of those people. Like you know something is not
No, I know. I
on
can
the up and up,
understand.
and you're
I
gonna
can
deny
understand
it.
like maybe admin people that literally just did bookwork or something, or like
Yeah,
cleaned like clothes and they didn't know where it was going for, maybe. But when you're doing shit like that and you're that high up and you were
you
brought
know.
by the government over, like you know all of it. You're being protected and it's disgusting. And why
It's
is
just
having
shameful to
protection?
think. It's just shameful to think that those were the people that they saved instead of bringing over
Mhm.
1,600 to 3,000 immigrants or like concentration camp
Yeah, victims.
survivors who victims who
Yeah.
needed it.
Mhm.
And no, we the United I keep saying we, thank God it's not we. I don't know why I lump them in with us so often,
It's
but like
easy. It's
they
so easy to do
decided
that
to save the diabolical and despicable people of that situation. So
for their
that
own
says a
personal
lot in my
gain.
opinion,
For their own personal gain.
because yeah, you're deciding to, yeah, just sacrifice better people for that. Like it's really disappointing.
Very disappointing. This whole
I just don't
fucking
even have words to really
month.
explain like how
How
fucked up
vile.
that one to me is. Like how
Yeah.
vile. Like paperclip, when because it's the most well known, it's one of the first ones you kind of like hear about. When I first heard of that, it was just one of those
What? That can't be real.
like
That's what I would
if
think. It can't be
our
real.
knowing our history and what we're taught, if that is to be true, where in the explanation, like explain to me why those are the people that deserved the second chance, you know?
Yeah, they
Like
definitely don't.
why?
Don't.
They fucking did not.
And again, we
They
could
absolutely
say
did not.
take in like 10% the smartest ones to bring them here to evaluate them to learn how they were this way so it never happens again. Prison in an institution.
If they
I can
were
argue
war
that.
prisoners, yeah, or like it's hard to say that cuz like they are still people and I can
Mhm.
get behind that, but like
They're still
if you
criminals.
knowingly, willingly and like yeah, like complicitly
Hurt
went
others.
along with like that shit,
Yeah.
you're kind of a piece of garbage in my books, and like
Yeah.
you reap what you sow type thing.
Yeah.
Like you made the
Yeah, you
bed, no
took the
lie in
risk.
it.
You took the
Yeah.
risk to
So,
protect yourself and not someone else. And that, like, whether that's fair or not, we don't know, but you're going to suffer
but
possibly the consequences, right?
and those consequences should have been 100% like trial and
Hmm.
not execution, but like execution of whatever like result came of that. Like I'm sorry. Like
Hmm.
I
It
just
shouldn't
that
just been
whole
one
team they put
person.
together was for fucking nothing because
Yeah.
yeah, you brought them in. You didn't lose them. You know exactly where they are, but you did
You knew
not
where they
try a
were.
single person.
You
Like
employed
that
most of
just
them. You
yeah,
were helping them get
they
here.
were working. You knew where they were. It just
Nice try, though, government. Okay, ready to go on to the next, do you think?
I don't know if I'm ready.
Yes.
Hopefully yours is war, but not so like
It's
depressing war.
it's war. It's war. It's war, but it's not as brutal, not even
It's
close to.
different.
It's different.
I'm
So,
excited.
yeah, so I'm going to read this. I found this article from the New York Times first, and then I'll jump
Okay.
into the Operation Northwoods, is what we're going to kind of go for. But we're going to talk a little bit more.
Is yours just one, or is yours kind of like a few combined that
It's a
are
couple, yeah, it's a couple together, and this was a really
okay?
good write up about this November 1997. So it's from the New York Times. The
Yep.
Pentagon offered President John F. Kennedy an extraordinary variety of dirty tricks intended to sabotage Fidel Castro, our prime minister's father. Just kidding, just
Yeah.
allegedly. Um, newly declassified documents show. So again, all of these documents about all of these operations
All of
were,
the information we have found is freely on Google.
yeah, it is freely on Google, guys. I literally just Google this. We dig. Mom gives us links. We dig. So these plans range from sophomoric pranks like faking a picture of fat and debauched Castro to destroy the Cuban leader's image. So literally, it's like kind of like how now like Mean Girls like
Photoshop
Photoshop and like yeah, they wanted to make him look like he wasn't this like beautiful
ruined
like
his reputation.
ruin his
Just
reputation
street
and
rep.
exactly just like a piece of shit like he's not this amazing leader that
Pretty
he's
much
turned
like
out to be.
Photoshop him with some like
Yeah.
lingerie on or some
Yes.
stupidity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly,
Hee
like
hee
LeBron's
hee.
going through right now. um
Yeah, God.
they also had murderous plots, including sinking a boatload of Cuban refugees as a phony pretext for U.S. military invasion. So I just
Well,
want
that's not
everyone to
funny.
really, it's not funny, right? Like, I really guys want people to think about what this means
What she
here.
just said. Yeah.
Exactly. So they're going to do things to incite military invasion. So they want to be able
Which
to do something to
is
incite
killing
war.
people.
to
Yeah.
think like, 9/11,
Taking lives.
think about other unalive moments. I'm not saying it's all happening. What I'm saying is don't put it past the fucking government, okay?
Yeah, it's a reason for war. It's an
Mhm.
excuse for war, and we all
But they
know,
want
or
it.
should know at this point, that war equals money, and people get
Yes.
greedy when it comes to making money, so they'll do
Yes.
some pretty fucked up shit.
To make it provoked and give them reason to do that, right?
Yeah.
So the plans
There's a
were
lot of
dreamed.
wars like that,
There's
tons of them.
so many, and that's why you have to question them, guys. So the plans were dreamed up in concert with the concerted efforts codenamed Operation Mongoose and spurred by Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy to get rid of Castro by any means necessary. Like, y'all, they fucking hated
They did
Fidel
not want
Castro.
Castro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for those that didn't know, because like I kind of forgot about geography a little bit when I jumped in, is like Cuba's right there. Like Miami and Cuba, they're like very close,
It's
right?
a
And there's
short
like,
distance.
it's not a very, because I was like, why do they care so much about Miami? And then I was like, oh my God, look at the map. It's been a while, guys. It's been a while. Well, you got to go back, right?
Yeah.
A sample comes, so a sample comes from March 1st, 1962, an Army memorandum entitled Possible Actions to Provoke, Harass, and Disrupt Cuba. One among some of
Jesus.
1,500 pages of once secret documents released Tuesday by the Assassination Records Review Board, a federal panel which by law can release government records related to President Kennedy's assassination. In 1962, memorandum outlines Operation Bingo, a plan to fake an attack on the United States base at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, providing
Jesus.
cover for a devastating U.S. military assault on Havana. It includes Operation Dirty Trick, a plot to blame Castro
Wow.
if the 1962 Mercury manned spaceflight carried John Glenn crashed. So they basically had this Operation Dirty Trick that if
It was
this,
like a plan B if something.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, if this goes down, we're blaming it on Castro. That's him. It's going to be an
And
assault.
there's tons. Castro was like the target of a lot of these projects. Hey, there's a lot of them.
Exact same with MK Ultra. That's what they want to do. They want to do
Have you
all
been
these
to
different
Cuba?
No, I've never been.
Cuba's beautiful.
I've only
Nick
been
and I,
to
it's the one
Dominican.
place we'd ever want to like actually go back to because
I've
it was
actually really
beautiful.
heard that. I've really heard that it's a beautiful place. There's
Oh
no
my
other
god.
reasons. I mean, we just
Yeah.
can't afford
So
going, and then COVID and all that shit.
if you
So, but
can
it's
do
definitely,
it
yeah,
because it's beautiful.
yeah. And I mean, they don't hate Canadians, so
Nope.
um,
They love us.
they love us. Then there was another operation, of course. So then there was Operation Good Times that involved sewing Cuba with fake photos of an obese. So that was, sorry, this was the one that mentioned earlier. So it was fake photos of an
That's the
obese
Mean Girls.
Castro, yes, with two voluptuous women in lavishly furnished room, a table brimming over the most delectable Cuban food. The fake photo was to caption "My ration is different." So they wanted to do two things. They wanted to show, I would assume, like the American population,
And
that
in a super
Castro,
unflattering way.
yes, super unflattering way. But then to the Cuban people, they wanted to show him with all these women and
Yeah.
all this food and being like,
Food.
I'm better than you, my ration
Yeah.
is different, I'm above you, to get their people against
I get all the
their
food and the
leaders.
goods and you get nothing type
Exactly.
thing.
And all the ladies.
For
Yeah.
thy, yeah, for thou, not
Yeah.
for thee.
Right? And it's like,
That's fucking
man,
hilarious. A
these
fat
tactics go
Castro with
back.
some fat women and food.
Good job,
Yes.
US government. Good job.
So
We're
that's
here for it.
Operation, what was it?
Operation Good Times. So things happen.
Operation Good
Good time.
Times. Okay, I
Yeah.
like that one. That one's
Yeah.
pretty funny. Okay.
Yeah, that one's way funnier than the other one, like bombing people.
Yeah.
Reflecting the Kennedy's intense desire to make Castro disappear, the CIA, is part of Operation Mongoose, did everything from hiring the mafia hitmen to devising poisoned scuba suit as a gift for Castro, but nothing worked.
A
The new
poison scuba suit. Okay, that's second to good time. What the fuck? You're gonna poison a scuba suit with like what? Bad oxygen to hope that he
Well, they got
uses
all
it
the
to
Nazi
escape
fucking
and like
doctors. They got all the Nazi doctors. Probably put some like mustard poison or whatever the fuck that shit is in
bruh,
there. Like, what?
a
Like,
poisoned scuba suit is the last thing on earth he would ever suspect though. Like that is like okay, I like this one. This one contains some good juices in here. Like
it's got a hot.
holy
It's got some hot goss in
wow.
here. Um,
Okay.
okay, so the
That's
newly
killer.
the newly released Pentagon documents show that the military came up with equally bizarre schemes after the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961.
Bizarre for sure.
In March 1962, the head of Operation Mongoose, I don't know what this means. General Edward Lansdale, the Kennedys' personal choice for the job, asked the Joint Chiefs of Staff for their views on top secret plans to concourt a pretext for a military invasion of Cuba. So they're just trying, guys. They're trying to find
Do
any
everything.
way to throw him off, throw his people off, get him to attack, get them to attack. Like,
Fuck
they
Castro.
are like fucking trying everything they can think. These plans also involve staging phony attacks against Americans and anti Castro Cubans. They included what the
Wow.
documents called a Remember the Maine incident. That slogan was shouted when the United States went to war against Spain in 1898, blaming Spain for sinking an American warship in Havana. So, again, fear
So they're
tactics,
bringing back, yeah, old, yeah, open up
old
old
stuff,
wounds type
old
thing.
wounds, being like, remember, remember. We could blow up a U.S. warship in Guantanamo Bay, and blame Cuba. The memorandum said we could develop a communist Cuba terror campaign in Miami area, in Florida cities, and even Washington. The
Jesus.
terror campaign would be pointed at Cuban refugees seeking haven in the United States. We can sink a boatload of Cubans en route to Florida, real or simulated. Um,
Jesus. So they went like at all angles.
Yeah, so that brings us to Operation Northwoods. So that's kind of like the backstory of all the different ways that they really
They're trying to
truly
get in at
tried
him.
to get in at Castro. So the Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation against American citizens that originated within the U.S. Department of Defense of the United States government in 1962. The proposals called for the CIA operatives to both stage and commit acts of violent terrorism against American military and civilian targets, blaming them on the Cuban government and using it to justify a war against Cuba.
9/11. Like
Every single war,
it's really
maybe?
crazy that there's like, yeah, like we said, like
Not
there's
every
in
war.
Vietnam War, like the Americans like staged attacks and then blamed it on the Vietnam to send back for like news, and like it's there's just a lot of, yeah, like provocation that like is either unarmed and completely innocent citizens get fucked over, or the military. Like think of all the like attacks on the Afghan soldiers, Afghanistan soldiers that were there, that like, oh, Afghanistan soldiers lost their life due to a mine or due to this, due to that. Like who says some of those aren't them just trying to draw like sympathy and like
Mhm.
sacrificing some of their soldiers for stories and headlines and sympathy and garnering all sorts of like rage towards the war and like bring our boys home and like
All this stuff, all the things.
it's
It's so hard to
just
believe now, or not believe, but it just makes you question these things, right? Like,
knowing that some of these didn't go through, thank God, because like God knows where we'd be now with like the extra wars that we just did not need. But like if you think about it, you named probably what, at least 7 or 8. Like there's got to
attempts.
be, yeah, and some of them, as silly as they are, they're still like valid attempts at someone's
There's
life and
nothing.
like to cause war. Like this one is specifically for that,
And money went
specifically to
into it.
cause war.
Taxpayers' money paid for this
It's
shit.
always about money. It's such shit. War
Like,
is literally money laundering. War
money,
is
money
like,
laundering. Um,
I just,
it just gets a little bit weirder. So we get a little bit deeper here. So the possibilities detailed in the document included the remote control of civilian aircraft, which would be secretly repainted as a U.S. Air Force plane, a fabricated shot down of a U.S. Air Force fighter aircraft off the coast of Cuba, the possible assassination of Cuban immigrants, sinking boats of Cuban refugees on the high seas, blowing up a ship, and orchestrating
wow.
terrorism in U.S. cities. The proposal were rejected by John F. Kennedy. This was before, obviously, before his assassination.
I have some information that I would really like to share, but I don't think I'm allowed to,
That's
because
fine.
when I was a kid, one of my family members was questioned by CSIS, which is Canadian CIA, for something. Um, but yeah, using remote control planes, using anything like that is,
Isn't that fucked up? They were
it's
going to
fucked.
paint a plane to look like a U.S. Air Force to get
And
shut down.
use and to
Yeah,
fly it into something.
so that they could have support for their fucking war. They were going to do, and like, let me reiterate, several of these targets were their own people. their
Yeah.
own people in Florida, in Washington. Like,
That's the thing is like they just don't they like the value like it's not even like a value for human life. It's like
oh,
complete disregard.
yeah,
Like we've said in many shows with completely unrelated topics, we are literal guinea pig pawns. Like we are the marble, like we are, in like Men in Black, like we are the
yeah.
small peons in the grand scheme
Yes.
of things. Like we are the rice
They're like,
type. Like
we don't
they've
like
got enough of
Castro.
us to dispose of that they can
Yes.
like that sounds gross and like the way I'm like talking about they like once you're in this like you just realize that they the elites the people that start wars and the governments and everything they see it like that is like
Mhm.
the unfortunate reality is they see us as
Yeah.
disposable.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like
they don't care. They just want to
we
make
will
money.
sacrifice this group of people, this town, this entire village in the middle of this
An
country, be it
entire race.
Africa, be it US, be it USSR, be it now Russia, be it China, be it wherever. They will, yeah, they don't give a shit. If you haven't
No.
realized over the last 3 years of our direct life, they do
But
not give a shit.
no. And it just seems to keep piling
Look at the
up. And
people
it's
they've
like,
killed in the last few years with this fucking garbage. Like, this
so
is not new. This is what we're
no.
trying to tell y'all. This is not new behavior. That's why
No.
it's so shocking that people's eyes aren't open. Because, like, look,
Yes.
this is from, like, D and I, like, all of these, like, projects are from the anywhere from the 40s to, like, what? Yeah, the
90s.
90s ish.
Yeah.
Like,
They'll
that's
tell me they're not doing
mental.
shit. And
That's
so, like,
mental.
I want people to think too, especially the ones that are unexplainable, like the shooting in Vegas
Yes.
and like the Ariana Grande, and some things just don't line up, and you're like, does that
School
not make
shootings. I
people
hate to
think?
say that.
No, but
Like,
a
don't
lot of
come at
them.
me.
No, but I'm just saying, like all the things that we've said before, especially with the school shootings, they happen, and people are being
Stage
injured, and there's victims.
distractions.
But it also, I believe that people are being manipulated to do that so that all the focus goes on other places. Are these real victims? 100%. Did these people are on a life?
But they
100%.
bring about certain laws that they
Yes.
want. They bring
And
about
here,
certain movements that they really need to push and
exactly.
to have. And that's the unfortunate part is if these projects are on record, on document of government, why is it so hard to
Release
believe that things like that
are happening.
are being controlled as well and
Hmm.
being orchestrated and puppeteered
Hmm.
behind the scenes?
Absolutely. I just it's to me it's a no, it's a not a no-brainer. It's like I'm not going to be surprised if the facts hit the floor on
It's too
these
hard of
things
a
have already.
coincidence to
Yes.
be looked over as like, oh, whatever. No,
Yeah.
it's
And look at how late the documents are released, right? So like in ten,
yeah.
15 years, we're going to hear all the stuff that we've been saying for the longest time, and we're
Why do
in
you think
the early
Pfizer
stages.
wanted to block them for 75 years? So all of us who were affected and could have an opinion and say I told you so are fucking gone.
100%. I also like to point out for 1 second, I'm wearing a cat shirt that those can't see with money because this means about war. It's all these pussies just after money.
I'm actually wearing my Canada March shirt and that's just awesome cuz
It is
Canada
awesome.
Marches was great.
It is the greatest. And he's greatest. And it's like pro good things about like good
Yeah.
vets and army, but not the US stuff. So let's go over into what we thought initially was just going to be all aliens, but apparently not. So let's
Okay,
jump over to Hales's
let
for a
me get
minute.
my research here.
I love it.
So I've got Project Bluebeam. I
I'm
like Project
excited.
Bluebeam because I like aliens. And as far as I knew, Project Bluebeam was just, yeah, like a fake alien invasion. Well, fucking buckle up because that ain't what it about. Like, I was very shocked at what
Okay.
I found.
Okay.
So, Project Bluebeam, the purpose of it was to create an artificial second coming in order to control people. So, yes, and to do so, they had three main targets and three main objectives, and each three of these is like where I was like, what? Like, I can see where this is still being implemented. Okay, so number one, they need to abolish all Christian and traditional religions in order to replace with one world religion. They need to abolish national identities and national pride in order to establish one world identity and one world pride. Number three is they need to abolish family as known today in order to replace them with individuals all working for the glory of the new world government, which reminded me of kind of like all the cults where we are no longer family, like you are just
Yes.
you are
You're
on a
being.
mission for one thing, you know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, so their purpose was to bring about like a pretend second coming, which I'll get into,
Of
in order to
Christ?
control people, in order to kind of, in
Okay.
order to like start the rollout of the new world, one world,
NWO.
everything.
Mm.
Yeah.
Our
So
favorite. Klaus!
the way they're gonna do this, get this. This is what I've read. They're gonna fake, essentially with HARP. They're going to fake
Okay.
earthquakes at precise locations, which are then going to bring about fake new discoveries, and they'll be found at these specific locations to finally explain fundamental errors in religion and religious doctrines, so they can start breaking the see, but religion didn't have it because this disproves this type
Ah,
shit. So they're like, I watch Curse of Oak Island, which they're looking for like the Ark of the Covenant and all this stuff that the Knights Templar would have hidden, and all the treasures and like old manuscripts and old scrolls. So say they find all of a sudden that, which then disproves like certain parts of religion. Like, you know what I mean? So that's step one.
mhm.
Step two, there's 4 parts to this. Step two, the space show. So whatever deity they choose, essentially, to come back for the second coming, will be projected in the sky using what we would know as hologram type technology,
Which they're
and it will
fucking
speak
with concerts.
all languages, and it will be for everyone. So it will speak all languages. It'll essentially be like, I don't know if they would do like one over Canada or North America, one down in Mexico so they understand, one like per country per language type thing, but they're essentially going to project. And like, I've seen some pretty interesting videos lately of like very incredibly realistic holograms at like soccer stadiums and like sports arenas, and like they have
Mhm.
like jaguars walking around, like the like, or like
Yep,
all those ones, and like the big billboards where it's like a train coming at you and it looks pretty
yep,
halfway legit. Like, they're getting really good. So that's their, so first it's going to fake earthquakes to
mhm,
disprove like religious stuff.
yep,
Then they're gonna have some like deity, which to me is religious, so they're still, yeah, keeping
100%.
religion in it, is gonna be projected in the sky, and it's gonna be like, holy fuck, there's like some giant like Lord Almighty talking to us, which is gonna fuck
That you're not gonna be
a
able to question.
lot of
Maybe it's
religious
Venu.
people, because
Maybe it's Venu.
imagine that though, like imagine like seeing a projection of something in the sky, not knowing what we know, not questioning anything, so you're kind of suspicious, being like all the Jehovah's Witness or like my grandmother or like little innocent people that have no idea, and you see this fucking thing in the sky, like that's going to be life altering and completely
100%.
mind blowing to
And
me.
think about the AI stuff too right now, right? So like it's
It's
gonna be
getting
real
there, it's
realistic. Yeah, it's
scary.
definitely getting there. 100%.
So point three, this is where it gets kind of like
Oh God.
weird in my opinion.
Okay.
So they're gonna they're gonna start like putting through telepathic electronic two-way communication. So they want to make people think that their god is speaking to them through like telepathy, which is like, I I'm interested to see how like they're gonna like go through with that if they ever did. Like,
I'm just gonna get off
that's a
planet
hard
Earth
thing to
now.
convince. Like, the things you're hearing in your head are from a god. Well,
Mhm,
no, that would be my internal thoughts. Like, I'm very
mhm.
much aware. Like, I'm interested to see how that one would play out. I couldn't find a whole lot other than just like explaining what they meant, but
Yep.
that's part three. And then part four here is a three-parter, and this is where it was like, bitch, please. So part one, making humanity think an alien invasion is about to occur in every major city. So that would probably include some more like holographic crap
Mhm,
or whatever they
mhm.
would need.
Yep, yep.
Part two, making Christians think the rapture is coming.
And
So whoever
I
is, so
fuck.
aliens and then the rapture. So people are going to be start disappearing and like going up in light, like in the fucking that stupid Seth Rogen movie, and like so first aliens and then the rapture. So that's like complete doomsday.
Mhm.
And then number three, a mix of electronic and supernatural forces, allowing the supernatural forces to travel through fiber optics, coax and power, and telephone lines to what is that? To penetrate all electronic equipment and appliances that will then by then have special microchips installed. So they're essentially going to hack. In my opinion, that's exactly what that meant. They're going to hack all of our appliances, electronics, and everything. And since like there'll be new technology, they might already have these little microchips or parts of microchips in there to
Microchip
then,
control, yep.
like, look at all the emergency alerts we all get. You know what I mean? Like to every phone like
Or how
ever
YouTube
made,
downloaded
no matter.
itself. Just kidding.
Yeah, like how it can affect everyone,
Yep.
like
Yep.
creepy.
That's
And
fun.
those techniques used in the fourth, like those three parts I just read,
Yep.
were used exactly that and exactly the same as USSR used to force people to accept communism by the aliens or the invasion. I'm assuming they didn't necessarily do aliens, but the invasion,
Yeah, like a
the
fear of it.
rapture,
Yep. Yep.
and then the complete electronic takeover. Which back then, electronic takeover probably
Not so
wasn't that
much.
hard because we didn't have a whole lot.
Yeah, might be
So
harder now, but
when I read all that, it was very because I just thought it was alien based. I
it was
didn't
alien
really
based.
know. I thought it was the fake alien invasion, which we've been seeing UFO on the news and everywhere for a while now. So everyone was very much like it's been kind of talked about a bit in our circles, anyways.
Mm.
But to go in and realize that it was pretty much like the alien was a part of it, but it was to force the one world everything, one world government, one world religion, one world unity, like one world race type essentially. But yeah, getting into it and just how they want to break down first all the religions,
Which is
then they want
happening.
to break down our national party. It would take a lot. Like even what we've gone through the last 3 years, I'm still very much a proud Canadian.
Fair,
I'm
fair.
not totally stoked on everything that's gone on, and I am definitely not stoked on our government or anything or people in
Agreed.
place. Like that's totally fair, but like I love Canada. I am
Same.
a Canadian. I am like people can say, "Oh, you can't say that. You're not Native American," and you
I
can
can say
say
whatever
whatever the
the
hell
hell.
you want because I am. I love this country. We have the most beautiful country. People are awesome. We're multicultural. Like I just, there's nothing to not love about our country. Maybe
It's
construction
the leadership.
sucks,
Yep.
but
The
leadership
leadership.
isn't the greatest, and like polar
No.
bears are kind of dangerous. But like
We're
we've
good.
got a good thing going on here.
Yeah.
But like to think that that's what they're trying to break down, and if you think about it, they've been doing that slowly for years, trying to break
Just
down
the
all the
American.
religions. They have us always fighting and always arguing, which all
Who's
of our
right?
religions are pretty much based in the same story.
Shit. Yes, and our
Like the
different
same theme of,
ideologies in that way.
yeah,
Like, yeah, spirituality doesn't matter what religion. At the end of the day, it's
there's
following an
always a higher something that
yes,
we're,
yeah,
like,
yeah, higher
and
power. I
then to
suppose.
break down the family, that makes
Yep.
sense because look what they're doing
100%
right now. Everything like
blind
the
right in
feminism
front of
movement is for us, the toxic masculinity, the
the men.
freaking LGBTQ tearing, like don't tell your parents this, like
Yeah.
trying to get to kids and like trying to keep secret of this and like tear everyone apart, and like there's a ton of like things going on that is 100% aiding that portion of the fucking
100%.
thing.
And the
It's
families, it's
just
like the way they attack families. We talked about it in the episode with Dusty.
the
Like,
nuclear family, like they're doing so much to try and keep all of us so apart and like not connected the way we should be. And
absolutely
it's yeah, so going through this I was just like, dude, this one is like
wild.
essentially in the works because they've got harp for all the fake for all the earthquakes they're gonna have to do.
Mhm.
They've got all the like AI, like
Hologram.
hologram,
Yep.
like technology for that.
Mhm.
Like that's the like the telepathic thing, I'm kind of like, I
Well,
don't
so
know
that's
what
funny
that's
because
gonna do.
that's what mine kind of goes into the next one, the last one of the day, which is kind of funny. It kind of goes into ESP. So it's
Yeah, so like
kind of
I'm kind of
interesting.
interested to know, like I might do just research on my own to find out like what exactly the government thought ESP and like telepathy are
Yeah.
going to do for them, you
Yeah, okay.
know?
So let's go into here. So that's really interesting. So what I find like seriously interesting is that at the beginning of this, we're talking about paperclip, where it's like actually extracting people from like that. Obviously, that wasn't a war, but that was a war on,
Yeah,
people. It wasn't like, it wasn't really like they got to defend themselves, but it was still a war on people and bringing them over,
people.
right? Yeah. And then Northwood, we're talking about false flags and the reasons why wars are started. And then this one, it seems like it's a war on family, on just an individual, like religion. It's like all of the wars. And this one was okay. So the next one is Project Stargate. So this Project Stargate is the CIA's human experiments with mind control. So this is where it kind of takes off.
So it's like a combo of
Yeah, a little
war
bit
and
of
mind
combo.
control.
Yeah. Yeah. So they didn't do it to necessarily like, there wasn't anything to like attack on war, but it was like to use as a tool to
Yeah.
find people or things or whatever. And again, okay, so we'll get into it, but you'll see why they get it, why the states gets into it. So Project Stargate sounds like something out of this world, and it kind of is. It doesn't refer to wormholes or explorations of other planets, but rather a CIA funded program focusing on psychokinesis and extrasensory perception, so ESP. So being able to be in your body, in your head, and seeing something that is not here, that is somewhere else, and someone can actually locate it, person, object, whatever it is that you're looking for. Just kind of wild. It's interesting that they deny these
So
things
like,
don't exist, but they fund them,
okay,
right?
I,
So keep
yeah,
going. You'll see. So
like
project. Sorry, go ahead.
superpowers,
Yeah, essentially, like yeah, that you are just above people. You have superpowers. Essentially, yeah, your mind is bigger than everyone's. Essentially.
stronger.
Yeah, like Sheldon off of Big Bang Theory.
Yep.
Project Stargate was a multi-million dollar program enacted by the CIA at the height of the Cold War, as per usual, to try and get ahead of the Soviet Union on powers of the mind. This program explored reading someone's thoughts, telepathy, predicting the future, and the ability to view a place or time remotely without actually being there. So yeah, they wanted to like because they heard that Soviet Union was spending this money on it, and they heard the original budget, and then they heard they dumped more money into it. I can't remember. I don't know if it'll come in here. It's like $30 million of rubles, and they're like they do like 60 the next year. They're like, oh, so they must have been successful, and they're putting more
Yeah.
money into it. So we have to like jump on this, right?
I don't know why, but I immediately thought of, all those photos that we see of like time travelers where there's like a guy holding like a cell phone in an old like war photo or like shit like that. Like that's what that makes me think of is like telepathy and all that is like time travel and
Time
like the
travel.
weird
Yeah.
side of like dimensions and stuff. So like that's kind of crazy that they were
Quantum leaping and shit like that. You gotta have to wonder.
into that.
Yeah, so the origins, Project Stargate was the result of rumors about the Soviets that were swirling around in the CIA in the 1970s. The CIA believed that Soviet Union was spending crazy amounts, 60 million rubles annually to be exact. Oh, it's
Jesus.
pretty close. On ESP and mind reading project for espionage purposes. It is still unclear
Yeah.
whether or not the Soviet was participating in ESP projects as they continue to be more guarded in the release of unofficial documents from the Cold War. Of course, why would you release it if
So
you don't?
to me that sounds kind of similar to like all the like mediumship and like healers and like that kind of spiritual world because like mediums and like seeing into the future is like fortune tellers and like stuff like that
TV
which
readers?
they always discredit and tell like there's no three like there's only three dimension, there's no fourth and fifth, like you can't talk to people, you can't like
Yeah,
see like your third eye, like you can't see things like that. To me is essentially them like I don't know, that's like
admitting it.
disproving it. Like if you're spending $60 million and researching shit like that, you got to think
Obviously,
and
things
believe in
come.
your heart that there's a reason to spend that and there's something to actually be researching. You know what I mean?
100%. Just on the note of
Interesting.
that, while we're talking about it, I don't know if I ever brought this up, but if you guys have right now, find a pen, find your phone, something, and look up Rockstar Fifth Dimension Explained and watch that video.
Yes.
And then come and
I
tell me.
love that video.
It is mind blowing. I would suggest smoking a giant joint and having a minute to
But
really, but
it
it
just makes you
explains
think. It
it.
is very much like
Mhm.
yeah, like to me
So
that like you saying that like $60 million, no matter what country it is, like they all have to be researching something about it. Like that it's legit. Like that just confirms it,
or at least
really.
that it's something. They don't know what it is, right? Like it's
Like
worth looking
ESP,
into.
like come on.
Mhm. So what is clear is that the CIA believed that the Soviet Union was participating in this project and moved to create their own American prototype of similar
See?
research experiments. So see,
Yeah.
it's again, oh, Russia's doing it, we got to do it.
Yeah.
Although this might seem silly today, it's important to remember the context of this time. If in both the United States and the Soviet Union, one thing was clear: if one country was trying to do something new, the other tends to follow suit, and they
Yeah.
didn't fall behind with any sort of technological innovation. So, thus, in 1972, the CIA released funding for a program known as Spinati, a government, bless you, a
Thank you.
government-funded research on mind control was officially underway. So then, all the mind control stuff starts going at the same time that they're doing
So
this
then it
kind of
probably
stuff
just
as well.
melded into that.
Absolutely. Remote viewing research and testing quickly got underway in 1972 at the Stanford Research Institute in California. Physicists Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff began testing people they deemed gifted individuals and psychics. So, like, one of their best known individuals tested in the first phase of Project Stargate was celebrity psychic Uri Geller. That he was known for best bending spoons. The CIA recruited him
Oh,
to,
the spoon
yeah, because of
bender.
his, yeah, of his psychic abilities for 8 days in
He
August
could
1973.
bend a
So
spoon with his mind.
yeah, in 1973, Geller was locked in a room for CIA, did various experiments on him to test his supernatural abilities. So this is kind of funny. So these experiments tested Geller's ability to see hidden drawings, find burial metal, and bend spoons with his mind. As a result of Geller's success in his experimental period, the CIA concluded that
Weird.
Gellert had demonstrated his paranormal perceptual ability in a convincing and ambiguous manner. So they obviously thought whatever he did was good enough to keep going. Um, Interesting. This
So
apparent
he could bend spoons, he could find buried metal, and he could find hidden pictures.
Well, that's what they said that they tested him on, and then they said that they deemed it a success, but it doesn't say that he actually did those things
Interesting.
in here. So
Okay.
maybe, or they're just like it was enough to like convince him to keep going. This apparent success
Little
was
do they know he's just like bending the spoon with his thumb as he's like.
so couple of yeah. So this is where it's kind of funny. So the U.S. Department of Defense found extra interest from the success, and initial tests were done by the CAA University of Oregon psychology professor Ray Hyman was asked to go to the SRI and personally evaluate Geller himself. After meeting with and evaluating Geller, Hyman concluded that Geller was a fraud and could easily spot the loopholes and
Yeah.
inconsistency in Geller's act that Russell Targ and Harold Prudhoff had apparently missed. See, so it's like, were those two guys paid to say, hey, not saying that, but it's like you always
Yeah.
wonder, you gotta wonder, like, why did
It's
they pick
peer
that?
reviewed, so if your peer sees some fault in it, I feel like that right there is what the definition of peer reviewed and disproved is, right?
Yeah. And I feel like this Yuri guy is just like the first like magician that just punked people in a really easy way. Like, at that
Well,
time.
how? Look at like David Blaine, like look at
Yes.
some of
Oh
the
my
big names.
God.
Like
It's
some of the
wild.
stuff they do is like
Mhm.
super convincing and like
100%.
it takes like years to master that, but like they've been going back forever. Like court jesters, like
Mhm.
goofy people. Like there's always been like
Circus has
wanting
always
to
been
find
around.
out ways to like yeah like entertain people and keep people drawn in and like the newest best next things. So yeah, magicians and like magic and stuff like not
Oh,
like
oh,
magic,
wow.
but like
Yeah.
magician magic has come a
Illusions.
long way.
Oh,
Illusions, thank you.
absolutely. Yeah. So in the late 70s, the CIA shut down its work with ESP. The program moved from California to U.S. Army in Maryland, although initial tests throughout the 70s were not necessarily promising and totally inconsistent. The project continued to receive funds from Congress because why the
Yeah,
fuck not? And
Congress likes to fund the stupid shit, right?
they do.
Shit that doesn't need funding. Like
They
fuck.
don't. So of course we see a rebrand. So we're rebranding
Yeah,
now to Operation Grill Flame, and they did
grill
have
flame.
Grill Flame, yes, and they did have one successful situation where there was
Damn,
the location of a Soviet airplane that had crashed in a Democratic Republic of Congo,
it was
which was then
found.
known as Zero. Yep. So a Rosemary Smith, who was a young woman working in the program, was given a map and marked a very specific spot where she perceived the aircraft might have gone. Map technicians then converted her notations into geographical coordinates, which
Damn.
were then sent to CIA station chief. 2 days later, the Soviet plane was found using the coordinates provided by Rosemary Smith. Using was able to extract the valuable technology from this drowned aircraft. So Rosemary
Wow.
Smith was one of the notable remote viewings.
Subjects.
Yeah, subjects that was successful. There was also two others. There was a fellow named Joseph Mc, McMonigle, who was also known as Remote Viewer
It's a
Number
mouthful.
One. He is a mouthful. He worked on the project from 1978 to 84 and was involved in some 450 missions. So, although it's super
Wow.
unsuccessful, they still kept him here. So, he specialized in near death experiences, out of body travel, and unidentified flying objects. According to him, a typical day of work meant being presented with envelopes and being asked to supply information about what was inside. One of the most bizarre experiments that
Interesting.
he was involved in was in 1984, a trip to Mars. During this experiment, he was presented with a sealed envelope containing the information, the planet Mars, and with time of interest being 1 million years BC. Without knowing the contents, he reported seeing very large, thin people wearing some kind of strange clothes and pyramids. Afterward, he learned what the envelope contained, that he did, and he believed that he generally traveled back to time into Mars. So, 1995, the project was transferred back to the CIA, who commissioned a report done by American Institute of Research. It concluded that remote viewing has not been proved to work by a psychic mechanism and that it should not be used operationally. Subsequently, the CIA canceled the program, and in 2017, the CIA declassified 12 million pages of records that detailed unknown aspects of Project Stargates.
It's
So
really wild to think
read
that
that.
like this kind of like those kind of like stories and like those those stories you hear that are like super coincidental, or like I have girlfriends who when their kids were really young would like talk to like people who have passed on, or like just stories like that that are just like, okay, but how? Like
Mm-hmm.
those always have interested me. I used to, when I was younger, I didn't read a book unless it was a mystery. I had this insane like
Obsession with
chicken
it.
soup mystery or whatever the hell type kind of
Yeah.
book like back in
Mm-hmm.
the day that I loved. And like, yeah, I was super into things that were like kind of weird and unsolved and like just strange and like the paranormal and like that kind of
Same.
stuff. So to think that like we've our whole lives been told like, oh, that's crap, like Men in Black, no, like
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
movie, it's pretend, it's yeah, hoo hoo. Like even crystals, going as far as saying crystals and tarot cards and oracle decks and like all of that stuff that we're made to think is like floofy and
Extremely
like
out there.
whatever.
Yeah.
Why are we being made to feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
floofy and whatever? Like, how do we all know that we don't genuinely have and house the ability to do crazy things like that? But like the
Mm-hmm.
fluoride that they're like calcifying our pineal gland with, and like all the chemicals that they have introduced to our
Dumbing us
foods over the
down.
years, like are dumbing us down and numbing us and like completely like
We don't use our full brain
blocking us.
capacity, and our
they
energy is
they've said,
short-lived
what is it, we only use how much of our brain,
and
and
very
like
small
the one
percentage.
side of our brain,
Mm-hmm.
and like
So what
I
does
don't
that
know,
say,
just like
right?
that one just made me like really like, damn, like so they're like they vilify things that they find
They
useful
put
and
millions,
powerful
millions of dollars into seeing
and
what comes
millions
of
of
it.
dollars. So there's obviously something like there within the supernatural, and like mine too, like it said they wanted to use electronic and supernatural forces, allowing the supernatural forces to travel through fiber optic, like supernatural is just like kind of interesting how yeah they want that like under wraps, and like for us to think that it's crazy and it's just made up and nonsense and
And these
only
are
in
the
the movies.
declassified. So what's in the classified
Dude,
document?
we
That's
can't
what
stress enough, like this is all stuff like
on the internet. Google it.
Mama Lisa
There
is
we go.
finding like CIA pages, like FBI pages. Like this is like I
Okay.
have one that is like super redacted, like an actual like scanned copy of like old
Interesting.
documents. Like this stuff is very much like on the internet. One, that you can find it if you do a little digging. Sometimes you got to dig a little hard, but you can
Yes.
find it. And
Definitely.
two, it's just
It's
like
real.
it's out there. Like this is known stuff.
Paid
I
for,
just
paid for by your
the
taxes.
stuff that we talk about is like, yeah, you can find this out for yourself. You can find out a lot too. Like some of it is crap, some of it is very truthful, but like you know what I mean. Like use your discernment. But like all the stuff that we tell you is stuff that like yeah is
You
like
find it.
general public
Documents
findable in
and government
documents.
documents, right? Like we're not conspiracy theory month. We're not like this is
No,
documented stuff.
this month has been really fun for the fact that like it like some of them are, I'm not going to say conspiracy theory ish because they're not, but like some of them are very speculative and like very like people like
Elusive.
don't know and controversial and like meh meh meh. Even the cults and stuff, like a lot of people don't want to hear about it because it's just like
And
it's
it's
kind of
hard.
far out there. But government is like these operations where yeah like brainchild by the people that run our countries, like that is
Think
something
about
that
that.
should be aware and should be known, and we should know how sneaky they are, and we should know the
Mhm.
weird goings
Shit they've
on
done to
behind
the
the curtain
public.
shenaniganry bullshit fuckery that they're doing, like bringing 1600 murderous Nazi doctors,
Personnel.
scientists,
Yep.
like
Hmm.
no,
And the
that is
government
something we should
cares.
know.
And
We
the
should
government
know.
cares. The government cares. They never do anything wrong. And this is what this is why I just can't with this shit because I'm like, are we for real? Because I think we've shown you guys now. So again, we went through all the mind control things that they've experimented on in the past.
Yeah.
Look at what,
The
like,
earth. They're
how
fucking with our
Earth,
earth.
they fuck with Earth, all the quote unquote wars, whether that's a different country, whether that's within our own,
All
whether
the distractions that they put out there.
exactly. And we're not
Hollywood.
saying this stuff to freak you guys out by any means. What we're saying is like, for one, it's been here forever, so don't freak out too much because it's always been
It's
around
in our
for
face.
years. It's in our face. But be
Indirectly in our
aware
face.
when someone's saying, "Hey, the government isn't got your back," and you're like, "Why the fuck do you say that?" We're
Just
just
be
a lot
aware of how you
sensitive.
react, because honestly I feel like a lot of people react on basically just on like feeling vulnerable and
Emotions.
like almost like
Yep.
attacked, like
Mhm.
you're being, no one likes to be told that you are being controlled, you are
No.
being fed garbage, you're pretty much being
Lied to.
set up to fail
Mhm.
essentially in all aspects. So like that's fair, but like you have to know that like B and I are by no means experts or anything, but like there's always something to learn. There is always
Mhm.
information out there that you're not aware of. Like we do not know everything. You do not know everything. No one knows everything. So like the information that we're presenting may not be something you know, and it may be scary, and it may be like your first reaction to like, yeah, like you guys are fucking crazy and like you have no idea what you're talking about. You're not professionals. No, we're not. But we're people that aren't lazy and will do the research and will find out all kinds of aspects and every kind of bit of information we can so we can form very
More
rounded
informed. Yeah.
opinions. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like I want all the information on something that I'm going to have an opinion on, because like, and I'm always learning, and I'm totally welcoming to like people saying like, okay, but did you know this, like what about this, like I'm totally fine with that, but you also have to be fine with accepting and learning, being like, okay, well I didn't know hear that, or I didn't know of that, like that's interesting, let me look into that and I'll get back to
Yes.
you, or like
Oh, something I
let me
can
kind
learn.
of like wrap my mind around this and like figure out like what you're talking about. Like I just, yeah, this episode specifically, because like I like history well enough. I don't know if that's even a truth or like a fact, but
It is now.
I just have no interest. Like it's just not something that piqued me. Nick was a history buff.
Yeah.
That boy knew dates, everything. Like
Yeah.
he aced social studies. I most certainly did not. If it wasn't for my teacher who gave us answers, essentially, I would not have passed that class. Like,
Okay.
so this one to me was like
Well,
just interesting in two levels, like the, because I'm just not that well versed in like war and all that crap, and yeah, to know that this is what our government does behind closed doors, you know.
and they keep it quiet for years until it
Yeah.
gets released. So I think the whole point of this, the first month was to see like, hey guys, look at all the behaviors that can happen to everyday normal people across the world,
Yeah.
across platforms, right? Let's look at the behavior. This month, now that we're done, we're like, hey, look at the government isn't always batting 100. They do weird shit, and we usually don't find out about it
Yes.
for the next 10 to 20 years. So maybe when you come across something that you don't believe, instead of reacting to that person, just pause and look into it a little bit more. And maybe your initial thought is
Remember all
wrong,
the
but look into
past.
it a little bit more, right? Because we're showing you guys they have done stuff with your mind, the earth, and the weather, and now war. And next month, we're going to be talking about pharmaceuticals and all the implications that has with our lives, starting with
Yeah.
birth control, mental health pills. How did
I
pharma
feel like
start?
big pharma is going to be
Big month.
uh we're going to be opening quite the can of worms, because I feel like that one has affected all of us in one way or another, be it good, be it very bad,
Yeah.
and be it just like all around messy. Like that is a messy subject.
And more
I'm
hidden,
looking
and
forward
more
to
hidden
it.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
this was a great month. The first month
That's
of
the theme too. It's the hidden agendas, it's the hidden just yeah, behind the scenes stuff that
sponsorships, money,
there's a
slots.
reason why it is hidden, you know? Hidden
Mhm.
stuff isn't hidden
And
for no reason.
we're gonna rip it apart next month, guys. So this is fun. This is a great month. I hope you guys like this Operation Project. What the fuck? I think that was a good title. Because
Yeah.
what the fuck? But yeah, like we said, guys, next month, if you haven't already, go back to the first month. We talked about cults. Go through all of our operations. We just did Holly Weird last week, nice and
Yeah.
light. And then all the being reals, guys. Like if you haven't listened to those and you're not quite sure, pull up every one and see
I
what we
can't wait to
talked
get some
about.
good ones too, because we've
Yeah.
got some good ideas for,
Yes. It just
yeah.
doesn't stop. I'm like, Danielle said the other night when she was here, she was like, well, do you think maybe we should just like, drop some of the B reels if it's a lot? I was like, no, I'm addicted. It's so much fun to talk to everyone. And
Yeah.
it really just, I love both of them. I like talking
As
about
long
each
as we
of it.
have guests and topics, we'll
Absolutely.
keep them coming.
I gotta stop asking people because I keep asking people and then I'm like booked like 3 weeks out. I'm like, B, stop. What are you doing? You only have like 1 or 2 days a week you can record. But make sure you guys are listening to those because those are awesome too.
Yeah,
You'll learn a lot. You might get triggered in some of them, but it's good. Let's all go through this together. I'll learn and grow. But yeah, this is an amazing episode, Hales. Thank you so much
I
for
love
rocking
it.
it with me. And guys,
Absolutely.
next time, Big Pharma, we're coming for you next,
Yeah.
motherfuckers. And
Look
until next
out.
time, bye. Does that work? Okay, bye. Thank you guys so much for stopping by the show today. We truly hope that you had a good time. If you liked this episode and you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe to our channels, like our episodes, and turn on those notification bells. You can find us on Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, and Google Podcast. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. Until next time, guys.